Could you state your name for me, please?
Whitney McLaughlin.
And who are you with?
I'm the Executive Director for CASA of Northeast Tennessee.
Whitney, could you tell me what exactly your mission is here?
So CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, and our mission is to advocate for the best interest of abused and neglected children in the juvenile courts of Washington County, Johnson City, Greene County, and Unicoi County. Our trained volunteers act as a child's voice to ensure that their needs are identified and addressed, and we believe that every child deserves a safe and stable home.
I see. What do you do in the community to support you?
So if I'm not answering it how you want, let me know. But the way that I'm kind of interpreting the question is how we service the community are those children that fall through the cracks of the juvenile justice system. So there are many cases where the Department of Children's Services are appointed to these kids' cases, but there's a lot of times that it's CASA only on these children's cases. So we're the only ones reporting to the juvenile court judge what is going on in that child's life. So if there's no one to speak on behalf of that child will continue to go hungry, be neglected, whether that be educational neglect, medical neglect, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. That child can easily fall through the cracks of the system with no one being able to report for that child. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Mm-hmm. How do you basically raise your money to keep operating?
So our funding is kind of trifold. So around 33%, give or take, is through our fundraising and special events. 33% is through individual, civic, and corporate contributions. And then 33% are from grant-making agencies such as the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth, Speedway Children's Charities, local United Ways, and then other kind of lower-level grants.
Do you have any big fundraising events that you're known for?
We have two big fundraisers throughout the year. Our annual golf tournament, which is held in August, and then our annual Red Shoe Gala, which is usually held in November. Both of those raise quite a bit of funding for the organization when they are successful, but this year we have noticed a dip in community involvement, which we kind of attribute to the ever-changing stock market, the change in government, people working longer hours, not having enough time to volunteer or attend community events. And with other conversations with other nonprofits in the area, they have noticed this kind of trend in their organizations as well, which is very detrimental to the organization. So we're always looking for other funding through individual contributions, holiday giving, or other grants that we can apply for to make up for funding.
I see. How do you find your volunteers?
So CASA is extremely unique in the way that we don't just have someone that says, I want to be a CASA volunteer, and they can build a house or stuff a backpack full of food or help stock, at, say, Second Harvest. It takes a very committed, very unique individual to volunteer for CASA. You have to have a heart. You have to be completely unbiased. You can't go in with bias or judgment with families when there's abuse or neglect situations. You've got to be wholeheartedly there for the child and report fact, not opinion. So you have to, have maturity. You have to have integrity, but you also cannot be biased, or have any of those misconceptions or preconceptions about individuals. But if you are interested in being a volunteer, you must be 21 years of age or older and pass background checks at the local, state, and national level. You can't have a previous record. We want to make sure that anybody that interacts with any of the children on our cases are 100%, free and clear of anything. We do not want any wrongdoings to come up on our end, so we do our due diligence with that. You also undergo an interview with our staff to make sure that it's a good fit. You might think that, yes, I would love to help abused and neglected children. I really think that I could be, the puzzle piece to really fix this child's life. But once you really start to learn more about it, the emotional toll that it can take, the physical toll it can take, it's very difficult to find people that are committed. because it's not just one and done. You volunteer for one day and you're done. Our average case lasts 9 months, and so we ask that you at least make a year-long commitment, so that way if you are appointed to a child, you are in that consistent relationship, and halfway through you decide, no, this isn't for me, then you leave that child without that consistent voice. So we can place another volunteer, but we want that child to know that they have this ear, they have this person that is their stable connection to their case, maybe the only stable relationship in their life at that point. And we don't want to cause any kind of disruption. So we really want you to be able to commit your time. Additionally, it's not just, maybe 1 hour a week. During the beginning months, it could be up to 3 hours a week, every week for the first month or two, because we want you visiting the child. We want you visiting the neighbors, visiting the schools, talking to therapists, talking to DCS, really getting a good holistic picture of what is going on in that child's life, and then reporting that back to the judge so he can make very individualized, very centralized plans to positively affect this child as they go through the court case. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, if we are not reporting this to the judge, a lot of times things can slip under the rug or fall through the cracks. And so if we're able to present a whole independent investigation, separate from DCS, separate from the guardian ad litem, and we can provide that vital service, then we are wholeheartedly happy to do it every day of the week.
Do you offer any training for your
we do offer training for volunteers. I'm glad you mentioned that. So after your background check, after your interview with a staff member, you go through a 35-hour, give or take, training class. And that gives you all the tools that you need to be successful. Learn how to write court reports, how to interact with court staff. You learn signs, and factors of abuse, domestic violence, how to recognize these signs in children or even pets, how to talk to these children. You learn about diversity. You just have a whole array of things that you learn about. That way you don't go in there completely blind. We want to make sure that you have the tools necessary to be a quality advocate. After you do complete that training, you shadow a seasoned volunteer. So even after you're through with training and you are appointed to that first case, you're appointed with a seasoned volunteer. So we're not just throwing you out to the wolves, so to speak. You have guidance, you have direction, and you see how that person works the case, so you can emulate that on your own case. Once that case has come to fruition and closed, the roles will reverse, and that seasoned volunteer kind of shadows you. So that way you have help and questions that you're able to ask, and you're still not out there alone. And even if you don't feel comfortable working these cases, the first few cases by yourself, we'll pair you with someone. We want to make sure that our advocates feel as comfortable as they can, so that way they can provide quality advocacy. Our caseloads are also very light. That way our volunteers don't feel overburdened. They don't feel overwhelmed. If a CASA advocate only feels like taking one case, that's fine. We're not going to give you 30 kids and expect you to make all of these visits in 1 week. That's kind of what separates us from the Department of Children's Services, is we have more individualized and more centralized advocacy. And that's not a knock to the workers at the Department of Children's Services. It's just, in a government-run agency, it's difficult to have enough resources to fill the need. And so if CASA is able to kind of alleviate that pressure, then we want to be able to help. In addition to our training classes, we also ask our volunteers to complete 12 hours of continuing education. And that can be on a multitude of things, including, alcohol and drug classes to understand what's, up and coming in the community, domestic violence, sexual abuse, ACEs, trauma-informed care, anything that can make you continue to be a good quality advocate. We want to make sure our volunteers are, getting continuing education on new trends that are coming about in our community.
Do you have a board of directors?
We do. We are bound by a board of directors, and I'll kind of go into something else, and then it'll lead back into our board of directors. We're a national organization that was founded in Seattle, Washington, a couple of decades ago, and then it has only spread out massively since then. So what started in Seattle, Washington is now a nationally recognized program, and in the state of Tennessee, we have a state association and local autonomous organizations throughout the state of Tennessee. I believe there are 35 programs now in the state of Tennessee, and our program is one of them. So we're our own local organization with our own bylaws, our own board of directors, our own staff. We have to secure our own funding, but we do have policies and procedures that are laid out through our state association and our national organization to make sure that we are all meeting the needs of the courts, and that way we're all consistent with our mission. We might all do things a little bit differently, but we still have that overarching mission of advocating for abused and neglected kids.
Do you cover a multitude of counties?
Yes, so we serve 3 counties: Greene County, Unicoi County, and Washington County juvenile courts, but we also serve the Johnson City Juvenile Court as well. We have our sights set to try to expand into Carter County, and we are working hard to try to make that happen over the next couple of years.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking the time with me.